Hi, I'm TJ Jones, the host of the State of the Saints podcast, and I ask that you like, share, and comment on this video. Thanks for watching. All I gotta say is, who dat?
Hey, don't let these tears fool you. There's all dog around this mug. I'm good.
Hey, what's going on, Who Dat Nation? It is yours truly, TJ Jones. And yes, I am the host of the State of the Saints podcast. Right now, I'm actually at my home. Right now, I'm doing some little bit of remodeling with my office. So I'm actually in one of the rooms in my house, which explains the virtual background. But thank you all so much for checking out the State of the Saints podcast, where we talk New Orleans Saints. Really do appreciate your time, no matter where you are, wherever you may be. On this edition, we're going to be talking about Saints OTAs. We're going to be getting into that. And also, we have a special guest that's going to be coming on the show really soon. Some of you are pretty familiar with him, RP3, Raymond Parks III from 103.7 The Game out in Lafayette, Louisiana. He'll be joining us a little bit later. But I want to say thank you to everybody that's here. Ask that you hit the like button. Ask that you hit the subscription button. If you're new, make sure that you hit that subscription button so we can continue to grow the show. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about OTAs. I'm pretty sure a lot of you already been watching some of the videos, some of the interviews that were conducted. And, you know, a lot of things about the New Orleans Saints seems like is different. You know, number one is quarterback Derek Carr. Derek Carr coming in to the New Orleans Saints organization after spending 9 years with the Las Vegas and Oakland Raiders. And he brings a breath of fresh air, man. He's a guy who is very sure of himself. I was watching an interview with Derek Carr yesterday. It went about 23 minutes. And he sat up there and he answered all the questions. You know, he's a pretty easy read. Like, some guys you have to kind of figure out and be like, man, what kind of quarterback this guy is, or what kind of player this guy is. But Derek Carr, you can tell, man, this guy's a leader. It is something that the Saints have been missing over the last couple of years. No disrespect to any quarterback that played the position, but it just felt like something was different. This guy comes in and he has like this confidence within himself. And I think that it's going to radiate off of him onto those players. He's a guy who knows where to go with the football. He's a guy that knows how to get the ball into the hands of guys that can make plays. He's a guy that understands offensive concepts, knows how to get guys in position to succeed. So that's extremely important. And, you know, I just look at the Saints over the last couple of years, and it just seems like, you know, something was missing. I mean, it's a huge void that was missing, of course, when you lose a legendary future Hall of Fame quarterback in Drew Brees. And then a year after that, you lose a leader in head coach Sean Payton. But it just seems to me that the Saints are trying to get everything together, and it's going to start with Derek Carr. Now, I will say this, listening to Derek Carr, I feel like he is a little bit of a wounded man. I feel like he never really wanted to leave the Raiders. He probably wanted to be a Raider for life, you can tell. And also, I just think that some of the customs that you'll probably see from other organizations and other franchises, I feel like it kind of affected him, because I think it was a comment that he made about him and his family being out in the street and, people walking up to him and, basically talking about welcome to New Orleans, and they excited about him being here. And he was like, yeah, that's great, until I make a mistake. I don't think he understands the magnitude of what it's like to play for a city like this. Like, being from New Orleans, I can completely understand this. Like, you don't have to be the best player in the world in order for New Orleans Saints fans to embrace you. There are some guys that were underneath guys that probably won't have to pay for anything in town, right? I mean, if you made a play 20 years ago, guys are going to remember you, a lady's going to remember you, and they'll probably hook you up with a shrimp po' boy. If Derek Carr comes in and he ingratiates himself to the culture of New Orleans, if he brings some wins here, and also he just plays really hard, he'll get the love. I just think that sometimes when you play in bigger markets, people have they got a short fuse, right? They ready to get rid of you for every little thing. Like, you're probably the toast of the town one week, and then the following week you're probably the worst thing that ever came to the town. But I just think that if Derek Carr, comes in and everything that he's doing it the right way, I think that he'll have an appreciation for it. The city will have an appreciation for him. And I don't think he really fully understands that just yet. But I like Derek Carr. I like Derek Carr. I like what he brings to the table. I like what he's doing. And I think that players are going to want to play for him. And I also think, like, in the future, if it came down to the New Orleans Saints and maybe another franchise, if he plays well, that free agent or that player might consider coming to New Orleans. And I just think that was a big issue for the last couple of years. People want to feel like they have somebody they can win with. And once again, that's not a knock on anybody. But with a guy like Derek Carr on the field, and a guy has proven that he can take a player and make them a baller. I think that guys are going to want to come and play for the New Orleans Saints. That's one of the reasons why we talked about Hunter Renfrow on yesterday, and I don't think that's going to be the end of that conversation. But also, guys like Chris Olave, they showed up. Chris Olave, to me, looks like he gained a little bit of weight and a little bit of more muscle, which I feel like that was beneficial to him. Rashid Shaheed not only just changing his number, but it just seems like to me like he's a little bit more explosive, and it seems like he's a little bit more comfortable. I think the biggest storyline of all of this was Foster Moreau being out there 2 years. I mean, not 2 years, but 2 months after being diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma after a physical with the New Orleans Saints. So it's a lot of storylines that we can choose from. It just seems like this is the true changing of the guards when it comes to the New Orleans Saints. I feel like last year was a little bit of a little trial era or whatever. I feel like even though Dennis Allen was the coach, it was mostly like that was the biggest change, if you want to be honest. There are all the other coaches we were familiar with. But now you see a guy who has his coaches and his players, and he's ready to go and go out here and make something of this season. So interesting to see some of those players out there. I heard that Derek Carr went 8 for 8. He didn't let a ball hit the ground, and that's also a testament to these receivers catching the ball as well. So the more reps that these guys get, the better the offense is going to look. And as those guys start to develop chemistry, I think you're going to see a more explosive offense, something we haven't seen in a few years with the New Orleans Saints. So hopefully the Saints can get back to being an epitome of offensive innovation and offensive efficiency in 2023. But let's go ahead and let me read some of your comments, and we'll just go ahead and get started from there. Chemo says, who that TJ and family? Smash the like button. Yeah, I appreciate that. Background looking good. Yeah, thank you, Linda. I appreciate that. And also we have Mike says, what's good, TJ? It's been a while. Yeah, it's been a while, Mike. Thank you so much for being here, man. I'm glad that you're doing okay. It's good to see you in the chat, man. Glad that you're doing okay. But I want to go ahead and introduce our guest. He just came in. Once again, you probably know him from 103.7 The Game down in Lafayette, Louisiana, with his morning show entitled RP3 and Company. He does a really great job. He's a good friend to the show, good friend to me. And I'm glad that he had the time today to talk to us a little bit about the New Orleans Saints. I'm talking Raymond Parks III, also known as RP3. Ray, what's going on, man?
What's up, man? You got people on here complimenting your backdrops. You're looking all professional, big time, coast to coast. That's what you're doing now, man.
Hey, man, look, I had to change it up a little bit. I'm actually in another room in my house. I'm actually doing some renovations in my office. So I just put the background up just to kind of, be on brand here.
Hold on. My man just did a very just kind of under the radar flex. I'm in another room in my house. We're doing some renovations. I had to step my game up. I got the merch on.
Yeah, man.
Hey, man, proud of you, man. You're killing it, man. You got to keep it up, man.
Man, thank you, Ray. I appreciate it, man. And you killing it too, man. Always doing a really great job out there in Lafayette or 103.7. But man, I appreciate your time, man. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the New Orleans Saints. First day of OTAs took place on yesterday. It was pretty simple to see that there was some different faces and some new coaches out there. But the one face that is different that everybody wanted to talk about is Derek Carr. I don't know if you've seen the interview yesterday, him talking to the media, but what type of player do you see when you look at Derek Carr, and what can he bring to the New Orleans Saints organization that maybe has been missing over the last couple of years?
The thing that stands out to me is that you're going to get someone who's a gamer. You're going to have someone that can throw the deep ball, right? But he can also hit the middle passes, the intermediate passes. And I don't think Carr is valued enough. And look, everyone kind of struggles with the Raiders, right? And he's not necessarily had the best support system in his time in the league, right? So he gets a fresh start, and those guys are always ultra motivated. We know that for one. But I just love his skill set. And I had an argument on the air this morning about this topic, and people are like, "Well, it's just Derek Carr, it's not." I said, guys, this team nearly made the playoffs the last couple of years with Andy Dalton, Jameis Winston, Trevor Siemian, Ian Book, Taysom Hill, all playing quarterback. Derek Carr's better than all those guys. Automatically, just even if you're just getting middle tier, mid-level kind of quarterback. Let's say you think Derek Carr's the 15th best quarterback in the NFL right now. Okay, great. He's better than what you've had the last couple of years when you nearly made the playoffs both of those years with inconsistent and, let's be honest, at best, mediocre quarterback play. So getting a guy who has something to prove, getting a guy who can put up numbers, you're automatically going to put yourself in a position to be a playoff team if healthy. And I pointed out, I go, look at the NFC last year, playoffs. Geno Smith, Kirk Cousins, right? Brock Purdy,
right?
Daniel Jones. Derek Carr is just as good as those guys, or even better. So 4 of the starting quarterbacks in the first round of the NFC last year were those guys. They're middle tier guys. Now, does Derek Carr make the Saints a Super Bowl contender? I don't know. Probably not, right? But for Mickey Loomis and company to try to get things back on track, they got a guy now that can make all the throws. They got a guy who's in the right kind of headspace. They got a guy who's known for being a leader, even when things go bad, and they went bad plenty in Oakland/Las Vegas. He didn't throw his teammates under the bus. Didn't throw his coaches under the bus. Didn't throw the organization under the bus. So you got a high character guy, which those Saints like to have in their locker room. I think he's a perfect cultural fit. And the Saints have done the smart thing, TJ. They've surrounded him with people that he trusts. Right? He doesn't have to come in and be the savior. He's going to have help. You give him one of his best targets, which is a great story, right? The Jesuit Blue Jay turned LSU team captain, turned Raider tight end, Foster Moreau comes. He's healthy. He's ready to get out there. They have a great connection.
Right.
We know Derek likes throwing to tight ends. So now you've equipped your new quarterback, Jawan Johnson, Foster Moreau. Both guys can block. Both guys can catch the football. Okay, you got Chris Olave coming back. You know what he can do. He's coming off a great rookie season.
Right.
You've put yourself in a position where if you get anything out of Michael Thomas, it's kind of lagniappe, as we like to say in Louisiana. It's extra. It's bonus. Now, you hope he's healthy, right? And you can go a lot further if you have Mike out there. But I like what they've done. And even the guy that's kind of a middle-tier wide receiver that they brought in, he's familiar with Derek Carr, so that's going to make the transition easier. Plus, the guys on the Saints right now, what are they going to do? They're going to look to Foster. They're going to look to the other guy, and they're going to say, hey, how can I develop my chemistry with Derek? I need to be on the same page. What does he like? What does he like to do? How does he like to? So those are things that are going to make the transition expedited, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're going to see a breakout year for Derek Carr. I make this point all the time. Once again, this team nearly made the playoffs the last 2 years with Andy Dalton, Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill, Trevor Siemian, Ian Book, all playing quarterback, right? So Derek Carr gets you at least 2 more wins. Well, that alone, now you're a playoff team. Now you've won a division. And the NFC South is wide open. Panthers are rebuilding. Falcons are rebuilding. Tampa Bay is treading water. I don't know what they're doing. I have no idea what the Bucs are doing. I don't think they know. And the rest of the NFC, once you get past Philly with Jalen Hurts and company in San Francisco, the 49ers can find a homeless man and put him out there under center, and he'll be able to throw for 200 yards because that's how they do things in San Francisco. But besides that, everything else is wide open. Wide open. And you don't have to have first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback guy to be a playoff team. Because you don't. Tony Romo got to the playoffs a bunch. He was never considered the best quarterback of his generation. He was never considered an elite guy, right? So you don't have to do that. Kirk Cousins has made a career and has made a lot of money being a mid guy, right? He's mid guy, but he gets his teams in the playoffs. For the Saints fans have to change their mindset from, who's going to be the next Drew Brees to who can we have under center that can be competent, can be a good quarterback. Doesn't need to be great, but a good quarterback to help us get back to where we're a playoff team. And then once you get to the playoffs, anything can happen. But I think it's a huge upgrade. I think it's going to give them a couple more wins if they stay healthy. And the pieces that they've added, tight end, running back, wide receiver. Look, man, offensive line has to be healthy. That's a big concern. I know it's a huge concern. And their depth is a huge concern across the O-line. But I would expect this offense to look a whole lot better. And we didn't even mention how they're going to utilize Taysom Hill now. Because now you don't have to do the farce of him being a tight end because he was never a tight end last year. And Dennis Allen and Pete Carmichael completely forgot how to use Taysom Hill. They're like, it's 3rd and 2. Oh, he's on the sidelines. Oh, we forgot he's there. I digress. That's a point. That's another point for another time. But now you got 2 reliable tight ends. You also bring in a running back who people forget. He didn't catch the ball a lot in Detroit, but he caught the ball a lot when he was in Green Bay. He was an all-purpose back in Green Bay. So now you got that component, and you got a downhill runner and the kid from TCU. Then you got Olave coming back in year number 2. Michael Thomas could be healthy. I'm really high on A.T. Perry. I think he fell when he shouldn't have fell, and he could be a great late-round fit, fine for the team. And hopefully he can take Traquan Smith's spot on the roster. But once again, I digress. That's a discussion for another day. The man's TJ. The man is on the roster because the Saints appreciate how he run blocks. You're a wide receiver, man. You're supposed to catch the football. But the Saints are like, bruh, you're our guy. You're a wide receiver. It's all right. you run block, you're good. But, Shaheed too, we expect a big jump in production year number 2, right?
Right.
I'm hopeful that happens. I'm hopeful that we're not going to see Callaway, Little Jordan Humphrey, Kirk Merritt, 2.0, right? Where we see flashes of guys that are undrafted or late round guys that the Saints, a lot of training camp stories get written about, and then they don't succeed after the first year. So, but I like the weapons. I like what they've done. But I think Derek Carr instantly makes them better. And I would not be surprised if you see him put together like a Pro Bowl season, a Kirk Cousins type of season this year, Dak Prescott type of season. I think he's capable of putting in those numbers. We've seen him perform that way before. And I don't think there's any reason, if healthy, in particular the offensive line, that they couldn't be that way in 2023.
You look at this team, and it's the same way how it was last year. On paper, it looks good. And I think that's the reluctance that people have embracing this team, because last year everybody was so excited. Oh, we got Jarvis Landry. Oh, we got Michael Thomas. Oh, we got this. Jameis coming back. And now we got Chris Olave. And it's like everybody got so excited. Now this year, they're doing all the right things just like last year, but there's a lot of members of the Who Dat Nation that are hesitant about embracing this team. And I'm the same way, Ray. Like I'm hesitant. Like I see that they're getting better. They're getting pieces to get better. But you think about the coach, you think about Pete Carmichael. Like, was Pete Carmichael, just an offensive coordinator, or basically just a sideline guy masquerading as an offensive coordinator? Like, it's kind of like I want to embrace this team, but I'm not too sure about that.
You're going to have to embrace this team in spite of the head coach and the OC. That's what I would say, right? Because they have to prove it. And last year, look, I get it. Dennis Allen did not have a good season coaching this team for the first 75% of the season. And towards the tail end, you started seeing some better coaching. And you're like, okay. And you started seeing the team kind of play a little bit more consistently, especially on the defensive side of the football. I think it's a classic case of, hey, you're the DC and now you're trying to be the head coach. And how do you do that? He may have tried to be too hands off with the defense or maybe too hands on. I'm not really for sure. Either way, something was off. And I think Pete Carmichael was learning how to be an offensive coordinator. I mean, look, he was always Sean's guy. He was Sean's guy. But we know good and well during that tenure, Sean Payton and his 16 by 16 foot, play sheet was the one calling the plays, right? Yeah. I mean, Pete may be doing something in preparation and doing something on game, but he's not the guy, right? So I think Pete Carmichael had to learn. Look, they lost a few games last year due to bad coaching and bad preparation and bad in-game adjustments. I think about the Cincinnati game. That should have been a win. Bad offensive play calling, bad execution. There's a couple other games where you don't have Alvin Kamara or Taysom Hill on the field in a key third down situation. And then I go back to the Mark Ingram running out of bounds before, and then he got injured, and we find out that he tore up his knee and everything like that. And fans were like, why didn't you just fall forward? And I get it. But why is the over-the-hill running back in on a situation where you need to pick up a first down? That's not. And why are you bumping him out to the outside, TJ? Once again, you line up Taysom Hill as a Wildcat quarterback or line him up in that formation, he can pick up 1 or 2 yards just by going forward. Have Alvin Kamara busted out to the outside. It was the little things like that cost them games.
Yep.
So you hope that has changed for this year, that they can kind of get their act together a little bit as a coaching staff. I understand the trepidation. I do. On paper, I think this team is better prepared to have a better season than they were last year. Okay. Right. That said, once again, they have to be healthy. And once again, you have to see Dennis Allen and Pete Carmichael both improve.
Yep.
As head coach and as OC.
Right.
And in particular, in-game adjustments. I keep going back to that Cincinnati game. They have it in control, and then they let it get away from them, right? Yep. And that's poor coaching, poor preparation. And the thing I just laughed on the air. I forget what week it was. It was another one of those just head scratching losses. And afterwards, he's like, well, up to this point where, we're trying to have fun and just play football. But now, it's a sense of urgency. And I'm like, man, you're like 4 games under 500. Like that sense of urgency should have been there from jump. So the fact that Mickey didn't make a change, the fact that they're going to try to let this kind of play out in front of them, right? I think they're going to give him every opportunity to succeed as the head coach and Pete Carmichael to succeed as the offensive coordinator. They go out, they get Derek Carr, they pursue him. They go out, they get Foster Moreau. They go out, they get Williams at running back. They did. I thought they had a very good draft. It wasn't a sexy draft, but it was a very good draft for them.
Right.
They addressed positions of need. They didn't overpay their own guys. Let the Atlanta Falcons do that because apparently they got money to burn. So I think they made a lot of smart moves. But once again, they have to prove it, TJ. And Dennis Allen and Pete Carmichael, it's going to be a prove it season. Prove that you belong in this league as a head coach and as an offensive coordinator. And if they don't, Mickey will make a change at the end of the season after year 2. That will happen. That will happen. But he wasn't never going to fire a guy after 1 season. He just wasn't.
Yeah, especially like when you look at, he was the only thing that really was replaced. Like he didn't have an opportunity like how he did this season, hiring the guys that he wanted. It was just almost like, like a substitute teacher. Like the teacher leaves, and then we just replace you with someone else. So I can understand to a certain extent why, they didn't want to go in that direction. I feel like it would be a different story if they hired Dennis Allen and he hired all of his coaches and they weren't successful. But I'm happy that they're doing this, Ray, because you no longer can hide behind, this was Sean Payton coaches. This was the player Sean Payton wanted. These were the guys that you appointed. Everybody that you retained, you felt like they were the right fit at what you were trying to do going forward. So if it does not pan out, the Who Dat Nation, Saints fans all over the world would know that this guy isn't it. And it's not a knock on him as a coach. I mean, I'm pretty sure if he was to get fired on Monday, he'll have another job as a coordinator on Tuesday because he's that good.
Correct.
I don't feel like as far as coaching, I don't think that there are more unanswered questions about Pete Carmichael as a coach overall because, like you said, Sean Payton was calling the plays. Pete Carmichael, you have a couple games in between where, Sean Payton went down. I think he tore his knee up, and you had Pete Carmichael calling plays. But what people don't understand, Ray, Sean Payton was still around. Sean Payton was still up in the press box. He wasn't down on the ground, so he still was able to say, now, like that play, switch to this. Now you are the deciding factor of how this offense is going to go forward. And a lot of people are looking at you as if, basically you were receiving all the benefits because of the greatness of Sean Payton. It's almost like what Eric Bieniemy was going through in Kansas City. But,
And the other thing, to your point, also think the quarterback situation was so weird for them last year, right? Mm-hmm. So they inherited Jameis, who I don't believe they believed in. And I'm not saying that to be speculative or to be mean. Please don't get me wrong. I just don't think they were like, well, this is the guy for us. Right. I really don't. Right. So I think they trusted Andy Dalton more, even when Jameis came back. Mm-hmm. But that whole situation, the way it was handled, was not handled great.
Right.
And whether it was the medical staff or whoever it was, it just wasn't handled the right way. Right. Mm-hmm. And it was clunky. And you could tell they were uncomfortable with what they had to do, the tough decisions, where Sean would have been like, well, this is what we're doing. Get over it. Right. Now, I do find it intriguing that Jameis came back, right? And he's very much humbled himself. So now that's not a factor. Jameis is not the guy because you went out and got Derek Carr. Right. And Jameis knows I'm not the guy.
Yep.
So there's going to be no weirdness, right? There's going to be no weirdness with the team. So that's going to be a big addition because Carr's going to come in. He's established himself. He's the number one, right? There's no quarterback battle. There's no controversy here. He's the guy. Boom, done, over. So I think that's going to take some pressure off because I think When Jameis got hurt, then it's like, well, we got to turn to Andy, and Andy can't do the things that Jameis can do, and vice versa. And then they're trying to blend it together, and they struggled. They just did, and injuries hurt them too. That's not an excuse. I'm a big not making injuries an excuse guy, because everyone's injured. Everyone deals with injuries, right? The San Francisco 49ers nearly made it to the Super Bowl with a 7th-round draft pick as their third-string quarterback starting. Okay, so everyone deals with injuries.
Right.
You have to be able to overcome them. But I do think they're in a better spot heading into the season, and we'll see what they can do. Like, I'm intrigued. I still think this is, on paper, this is a 10-win team. Like, and that's plenty enough in the NFC South to win that division. Now, can this team make a run? I don't know. It's all about matchups. It's all about who's healthy at the right time, who you're playing at that time. But don't forget, nearly every year, the playoff teams, half of them are different than the year before, because the NFL is all about parity.
Right.
So, yeah, the Saints didn't make the playoffs the last couple of years. Would it stun you if they won the division and hosted a first-round playoff game? No. And I just think they're better. Now, once again, to your point, questions about DA, they're valid, right? Questions about Pete Carmichael are valid. Like, those are legitimate questions. So I think they're going to have something to prove that, hey, we can do this. We're not byproducts of Sean Payton. We can prove it to ourselves. And for DA, he has to prove that, the stuff that happened with him in Oakland and Vegas wasn't on him. Like, he has to prove, right? Because his resume as a head coach is not great. It's bad.
Yeah.
It stinks. Right. So he has something to prove, to kind of turn things around, to prove that he deserves to be a head coach, that he's worthy of being a head coach in the National Football League. And Carmichael has to prove that he's just not a Sean Payton guy.
Right.
Like, that's what he has to prove. So I think they're going to be extra motivated. And for me, offensively, I'm going to be excited to see how they're going to use all three of their running backs. The Alvin Kamara situation looms, so you don't know if you're going to lose him for the season or part of the season, or if that case just keeps getting kicked down the road, which would allow you to not have to worry about that. But you can't have enough good running backs. You can't have enough good wide receivers, right? You can't have enough good tight ends. So I like their things on offense. The big question mark for me is the defense. Is it going to bounce back? Because they had an off year for most of the season. They got stronger as the year goes on. But, you're talking about, you mentioned, make or break guys. It's make and break time for Peyton Turner, man. Like,
yes,
you're a first round pick.
Right.
Saints fans already went through this nonsense with Marcus Davenport. Like, their tolerance level is low.
Right.
You better step up, and he's going to be counted on. And they bring in, look what they do in free. They bring in 2 guys, younger guys across the defensive line. They draft a guy in the first round late. Then they bring in another pass rusher. Like, they made a conscious effort. We're going to address our front seven. And people got upset because Caden Ellis left. Oh, okay. Well, he was the 3rd-string linebacker that got a bunch of sacks last year and proved that he was more than a special teamer. And and somebody else overpaid him. Okay, great. I think the Jackson kid out of App State, the 2nd-year player, fit him right in there. Like, I just, or maybe you finally get something out of Zach Baum. Finally, maybe. But, Saints fans are worried about the 3rd-string linebacker. Like, no, calm down. You don't have to worry about the 3rd-string linebacker. Like, you still got DeMario, and you got Pete Werner, who's an absolute stud. So just relax about the 3rd-string linebacker.
Yeah.
And something that they maybe didn't have last year that could be a huge advantage for them is that they now, because what they did in the offseason and what they did with the draft, all the versatility they have with their safeties. Like, we're going to find out. Like, they have a wealth of DBs right now. We couldn't say that last year. And they have guys that can do multiple things. And what does Dennis Allen like to do with his defense? What he did under Sean Payton? What does he like? He likes guys that can be versatile. He's got a ton of those guys on that side of the football. I think you're going to see improved play on the back end of the defense. I think you're going to see more of what you saw in the last quarter of the season from the Honey Badger than you did early on, because he looked like he was an absolute bust for the Saints. And you're like, oh man, he's just getting a paycheck. It's so disheartening to see an in-state guy, an LSU legend,
Right.
flaming out and not living up to what we thought he was going to be. But you started seeing strides. I could see him have a bounce back season. The guy for me on the back end, Marcus May, that's another guy that's got to put up or shut up. Like, I was not impressed by what he brought to the table.
Right.
I know he's a little banged up, and that's part of it, but I thought he would have played far better than he did. And so he's going to get pressed. Like, they made moves to push him, but they got a lot of versatility. And here's the bigger thing, TJ. I keep circling back to this. This has, for me, projecting them to be a team that could win 10 games and win the division and be a playoff team has a little less to do with the Saints and more to do with the state of the NFC South. Like, because if this was 3 or 4 years ago, I wouldn't feel that confident.
Right.
But once again, Tampa, they're adrift to sea. Carolina is going to be starting a rookie quarterback or Andy Dalton to begin with, and then going to go hand over the keys. But they're rebuilding, right? And Atlanta is trying to rebuild on the fly.
Yep.
No one, if I'm a Saints fan, and I'm not a Saints fan, but if I'm a Saints fan, I'm not scared by any team in the NFC South. I'm just not.
Yep.
So the NFC is going to be down. We've had more talent leave the NFC to go to the AFC, and Aaron Rodgers finally leaving Green Bay. You have no idea how good Green Bay is going to be. You have no idea if Jordan Love can actually be a starting quarterback in this league, right?
Yep.
You know Dallas is always going to disappoint and, lay an egg. Do you believe Daniel Jones and the Giants are going to be, are they going to build off that year? Maybe. Maybe. Is Justin Fields and the Bears going to take the next step? Once again, maybe. There's so many question marks. I feel more confident in what the Saints have on their roster, once again, if they can stay healthy, to be a playoff team than I do probably half of the NFC.
All right. I think that they have everything that they need in order for them to make a run. Like what you just alluded to, there's not just the NFC South, but the NFC as a whole. Like, there's a huge void. There's like Jalen Hurts, and then there's like everybody else. Like, everybody else is trying to figure it out as well. And, also something that you mentioned about, Sean Payton, the greatness of Sean Payton, I got to use this example. Ray, my mom is a really good cook. Like, my mom, she can take certain little ingredients and, and make this great meal with it. That shows the greatness of her as a cook. Some people have to go out here and get the exact things that they need in order for something to taste the way that it does.
Yeah.
Sean Payton was able to get like the average wide receiver and see, he has speed. So let me use him as the guy to take the top off the defense. This guy like Traquan, he's a good blocker, so I'm gonna put him on the outside. We're gonna come up with schemes where he can be the lead blocker, so AK can hit his head on the goalpost. When I look at Dennis Allen, Pete Carmichael, I don't think that they're that good. I don't think that they're good enough to look at a guy's qualities and be like, okay, he's good at this, so we're gonna put him in a game for this. I feel they did the right thing by going out, getting guys who can do a multifaceted of things, not just one particular thing right offensively. Because we all knew, like, when Robert Meacham was in the game, what they were going to do. They probably going to do a streak route. They was going to try to throw the ball deep. Or Devery Henderson, same thing. Or Joseph Morgan. Or, it's certain players, when you saw them in a game, you knew what they were going to do offensively.
Or like when they put in Devery, you knew it was going to be a vertical, right?
Exactly.
You knew he was there to stretch the field. Yeah,
exactly. But what you have right now is an offense with the guys that can do so many different things. So it doesn't have to be as complex, anymore. So I like the fact that they're actually getting guys that can do different things. And I just think that would leave the defense of the opposition guessing and wondering what angle you're going to approach this at. So
I also think, and I've thought about this idea, are they going to go different than what they've done in the past? Maybe a little bit last year, they tried to be too much like what Sean would do.
Right.
So, and what I mean by that is, so they re-sign one of their tight ends. They go out and get another tight end. They bring in a running back in free agency, and then they draft a running back. Could they run 12 personnel? Like, could they be running 2 tight end sets and just have one back there? And you can rotate it in and out of the backs all day long. And instead of thinking, oh, we're going 3-4 wide, which I love Sean and he's a genius, but sometimes watching him when it's 3rd and 2 and the guy's lining up 4 wide and they're trying to throw a 12-yard dig route when you can only need 2 yards to pick up the first, it just infuriates me. Just like line up and get the first down, man. Come on, stop being cute. But I do think, I look at that and I go, we know this team is better at run blocking, especially with their guards, than they are at pass blocking. You bring in, now you got 2 tight ends. You bring in 2 more running backs. You see where I'm going with this. You still got Taysom Hill. Are we going to see them be more of a run-based team? And so I do wonder about that. And if they go to run the 2 tight end set. The other thing is this. You don't know what you're going to get on Michael Thomas. So I keep telling Saints fans, you have no clue. You have no idea. You have no idea. So whatever you get is just extra. Just be happy with whatever you get. If you get 6 games of Michael Thomas, throw a parade. It's a glorious day. Thank baby Jesus for blessing you with Michael Thomas for 6 games, because you just raise your hands. Thank you. And just be happy with it.
Right.
The Hunter the trade rumors about the former Clemson Tiger and former Raider slot wide receiver.
Yeah, Hunter
Renfrow. That's interesting because right now they don't have a guy, right? If you have the 2 tight ends, then you have Mike, you have Olave on the other side. You can have Rashid to take the top off that Robert Meacham, Devery Henderson role. He has the potential to be that guy to take the top off. Who's your Lance Moore? Who's that guy? You don't have one right now. Now, so do they make a trade for the other former Raider? If they do that, then that would indicate that they're harkening back more to what a Sean Payton dynamic offense with Lance Moore, Jimmy Graham, and all of those, those guys with Colston and that group. So, but I think it all depends. I think they're going to maybe have a little bit more flexibility, but I would not be surprised. You don't go get the guy who led the NFL in rushing touchdowns, and you don't draft a guy the way they did, the kid out of TCU, who's a downhill runner. Like, obviously, that's sometimes teams tell you what their direction is going to be, TJ, with the moves they make, or the moves they don't make. Downhill runner.
I mean, just look. Look at them. Like, you look at, they got Kendre Miller, in the 3rd round. Then they got Nick Seldever in the 4th round, a guard / tackle. And more than likely he's gonna play because Andrews Peter always hurt. I hate to say it like that.
Shout out to our boy Pondwater, because you were already projecting he's gonna get hurt.
Pretty much. So I mean, you see what they're doing, and if you look at the Saints when they went to the Super Bowl in 2009, they was like 3rd in the league in rushing. Even though people looked at that offense, I mean, they were running the football quite a bit, and they were really good at it. And you had like a lot of those guys, that were on that line, like Jonathan Goodwin, Jamar Bushride, Jari. I mean, list goes on and on. That was probably one of the best offensive lines the Saints ever had.
If they can replicate that, if you can run the football effectively, it sets up play action. It also makes sure that your wide receivers only have single coverage to deal with. So if you can establish yourself to be able to run the football effectively, TJ, with the backs that they have, well, guess what? That's going to free up Michael Thomas. That's going to free up Chris Olave. That's going to free up Jawan Johnson. That's going to free up Foster Martin. It's a cliche, and I say it all the time. We get focused on the quarterback and the wide receivers because we live in an era of fantasy football and 7-on-7, right? But if the big fellas up front don't do their job, if they don't block,
then you'll fade to black.
Does not. It does. There you go. It does not matter.
Hey, that was on brand though. Like if they don't block, fade to black.
No, done. You're gone. So but that's the truth. Is that the key for the Saints for me? And we can getting the defense to be a little bit more dynamic, get them to get after the pass rusher a little bit more, deal with the run game better than they did last year. That's going to be key. Clean up special teams, which were a bit of a disappointment last year. That's going to be a key for them. And more consistent quarterback play. Absolutely. All those things check off. But it's got to start up front. Like, Penning's got to take that next step in year number 2 to be the left tackle. You got to get Andres Pete to be healthier. You need, I think, McCoy to have a bounce-back season. I didn't think he was great last year. And look, you got to see Caesar make improvements, but they didn't pick up that option, right? So he's got something to prove in a contract year.
Right.
Ramczyk on the right, and then you got the guys that are going to be behind them, giving them depth. If they can solidify their offensive line, they don't need to be great, okay? They don't need to be great. What they need to be is to be efficient. And if they can do their job up front, then it's going to have a domino effect across the board, and you're going to see an offense that could possibly be top 10, top 15 in the league because of the offensive line. But it's always up front. I know I'm a big guy. Look, I've been losing weight. I'm under 300 pounds now. I'm more proud of myself, but I'm still a big fella. And when I played football back in the day, I played across the line of scrimmage. Yeah. So I am a little, impartial, so to speak, to that. But it's the truth. Like, if their offensive line returns to form and they play to their potential, TJ, they could be really special. But it all starts up front because they weren't special last year, right? Yeah. They weren't special last year. But they got to step it up. And that means pond water, Andres Pete. And by the way, for you viewers out there that have never heard that term, TJ and I have expressed it on my show, and we've expressed it on here before. I call Andres Pete pond water because, like pond water, he doesn't move. I've never seen a guy that big that can't move. It's just that, like, he's really good about getting up halfway in his stance and putting his hands and leaning forward on somebody like this. This is him. This is what you see. Okay. But if you're asking Andres to pop up and do some pass blocking, he looks around, he goes, ooh, there's somebody behind me. Yeah, that's not his specialty.
Yeah, that's definitely not his specialty. I mean, run blocking, he's really good.
He's good. He's good at run blocking. But you can just tell, man, he gets scared out there when they try to make him pass block. You see those defensive linemen, and by the time he pops up in his stance, he got his hands up. There's no one there for him to touch because they're already on the side of him.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you. I see a scenario Andres Pete might not even be with the Saints a full season. Like, I'm serious. I feel like you might see him get traded. Like, I mean, because I know we look at Andres Pete in a certain way here, at St. Fez and in Louisiana, but around the NFL, like, they look at him as like top notch. Like, seriously.
TJ RP3, he's a Pro Bowl guard.
Yeah, Pro guard. Yeah, multiple Pro Bowler.
He's a Pro Bowl guard because Drew Brees made him a Pro Bowl guard.
Yeah,
and second of all, because other people decided not to make the trip to the Pro Bowl. Okay, so let's be real. Okay, let's be real. Not all Pro Bowlers are made the same.
Yeah, they're not exactly. The alternate of the alternate. I mean, you got to kind of consider that, But my final question for you before I let you go is about Michael Thomas. You talked about him quite a bit, but the fact that he's not around the facility for OTAs, the stories about, he'll be ready for a training camp. How should the Saints approach this? I know they look at him as a great talent. He is a great talent, like when he's on the field. But should the Saints look at him as that top priority? Like, that guys like the A.T. Perrys, the Brian Edwards, the guys that kind of fit.
It's all bonus, TJ. It's all bonus. You can't go into the season game planning believing that Michael Thomas is going to be one of your top options, because you did that last year, and you did that the year before, and you did that the year before that. And how'd that work out? Right. So it didn't.
Right.
You have a guy that is healthy coming back in Chris Olave. Washington's going to be a training camp body. Maybe he makes the team. I'm really high on A.T. Perry, like you said. And obviously Shaheed, we expect big things out of him. So you can't expect him. Like that's the thing. It's easy to fall in love with the prospect of Michael Thomas coming back. Thinking that he's going to come back even at 85% of what he was before all the injuries is foolish. You're putting yourself in a position to hurt yourself.
Yep.
That's what you're doing. If you're sitting here going, oh man, Mike's going to be back, can't guard Mike, it's going to be a full season, he's going to be, no, you can't do that. So you have to be appreciative of whatever Mike gives you. And if he can be healthy, great. That's great. But you can't have your offense hinge on Michael Thomas being healthy. And that's not a knock on Mike, because I know he's upset that he's been hurt. Like, right. the guy is legitimately upset and angry by the fact that he's had to miss the last 3 seasons and people don't consider him a top 10 wide receiver anymore. That upsets him. Okay. He's upset that he's been injured. Can you imagine? Look, it's going on almost a presidential term, TJ, like since he was the man. Yeah. So you can't depend on that. You just can't. And if you're a Saints fan, you gotta have the mentality. And I know it's hard, but the Saints, once again, I said it earlier, a team tells you about what their plan is, about what their approach is. They redid the contract for essentially a 1-year deal.
Yep.
Right? They're telling you, hey, great. If you give us something, that's awesome, man. That'd be great. That'd be that'd be phenomenal if we could get just a glimpse of Mike back. Great. And it's on a team-friendly deal too. Man, awesome. But they have set themselves up not only for this season, but for the years after to have to move on from Mike. Because right now, Mike hasn't shown you that he can be healthy. So you can't even, like, he's not even on my radar. Like, if I'm doing the depth chart right now for the Saints for the season, I don't have Mike on there because I can't have Mike on there because, once again, he's dealing with another surgery and he's not around and he's trying to rehab. And every season, that's been a weird situation, right?
Right.
And the dynamic between him and the Saints and their medical staff is weird. It's tense. It's like a Zion with the Pelicans situation, right? Where there's people aren't necessarily being transparent about what's really going on both sides. So you can't depend on it. Like, you just can't. You're going to give yourself an ulcer if you're a Saints fan thinking that you're going to have a healthy Michael Thomas for the whole season. You just got to have the mentality, man, whatever we get out of Mike, it's like icing on the cake, man. It's a little extra side of gravy or whatever you want to do. Like, it's just going to be extra. And if you have that mentality, you're going to be a far happier Saints fan.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. You know, I like Michael Thomas a lot. I think that he was on pace to be the greatest wide receiver in Saints history. But, I mean, these injuries, man, you can't avoid that. And I like what they've been doing, you know, trying to get some of these younger guys in there, kind of fit that same build. I'm not going to say they're going to be Michael Thomas. I mean, there's only one of him, but you can definitely tell that they're trying to find guys that can kind of fill that void. And you know, they're looking at a guy like Olave to step up to be that number 1 guy. You're probably going to see way more targets coming number 12's way coming this season. But Ray,
exactly. And remember, look what they've done. Marcus Colston was never a Pro Bowler, even though he should have been, right? We can have that discussion. Yeah. Meacham did some good things for the Saints, went and tried to get paid with the Chargers. It didn't work out. He had to come back to the Saints. Devery Henderson, right? Lance Moore. You know, they made Jimmy Graham. What was Jimmy like after he left New Orleans? So they've proven that they don't need all pro level pass catchers to win a lot of games, to win a lot of division titles, and win a lot of playoff games. Okay. Yeah. They've shown you that. They've shown you that. So they're kind of in that situation yet again here. And once again, look, I think Olave could probably be a Pro Bowler. I think he could be a really good wide receiver for them. I like A.T. Perry. Maybe Perry could be the guy that they groomed to kind of replace Mike, right? Mm-hmm. in that spot. But if you're a Saints fan, you just can't be so focused and think that you're going to get the Mike that earned that contract, by the way. I mean, the first year, it's not like he got paid and then all of a sudden, that first year, he didn't set the NFL record, right? He went out there and dominated the league. So, but then after that, every season after that has been this. Mm-hmm. So if you can get Mike to maybe play 7 to 10 games this year, that's a win, man. That's a win. That's a huge win for them.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it should be interesting to see, can he stay healthy for a full season? But I mean, you got to be prepared for life outside of Michael Thomas, because the last couple of years have shown you that hey, you had to. Uh, I mean, I hate to say it like that, but it's just
You ain't lying. You ain't
yeah,
lying.
yeah. But hey, thank you so much, Ray, for being a part of the State of Saints podcast. Before we let you go, let everybody know how they can get in touch with you.
You can follow me on Twitter. I'm still allowed to be on there until Elon decides that I'm not appropriate for Twitter. It's at RP Roman numeral 3 _ sports. You can follow me. I tweet. I sometimes tweet stupid things, and then sometimes so a lot of times I just retweet what TJ does because he does so much a better job about this stuff, and it makes me look smarter. So.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, man, you keep killing it, man.
You do a good job as well, man. And everybody, you can download the 103.7 The Game app as well. Like if you're not in Louisiana, you still can download the app. You can check out RP3 and Company as well as the other shows that are on 103.7 The Game. So make sure that you download the app and also just check out RP3 and Company on every single morning, and make sure y'all check it out. Great stuff, great content. Oh yeah, and Eugene wanted me to give you a message here. Let me make sure
That's my man, man.
Before you go. He says, TJ, tell RP3 his friend and coworker Eugene said, don't forget about the little people.
Don't forget about the little people. Let me tell you something about Eugene. First of all, he loves your podcast, which is great.
Yeah,
me and Eugene go way back, like 20 years ago. We used to work together. That man danced at my wedding like a fool, by the way. Just letting you know. And he danced, so, man, he tore up the dance floor so much that other people were intimidated. They didn't want to get on the dance floor. They're like, we can't handle that. So my man lives in Philly now, married. He's living his best life. Great guy, and a shout out to my man Eugene. So I'm glad he supports you. So
yeah, man, Eugene always supports the show, man, and thank you for supporting the show as well, being here, man, and thank you so much. The chat, everybody, positive responses. Everybody is, enjoyed your content and enjoyed your thoughts about the Saints, and man, look forward to hearing what you have to say about not only the Saints but Louisiana sports in general throughout 2023. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend Raymond Parks III, also known as RP3, here on the State of Saints podcast. Thank you, man.
Thank you, brother.
Hey, don't let these tears fool you. There's all dog around this mug. I'm good.